So here we are, we three queens. I'm Achieng.
I'm Musonda.
And I'm Micheline.
It's so great to be back. And
Yes.
ladies,
Yes.
you know, in true fashion, we keep it real.
Yes.
So today we want to talk about a subject that I think you can both relate to so well. Microaggressions.
Ooh, ding, ding, ding,
Like,
ding, ding, ding,
yes.
ding. Fire sparks.
To start, just so that we're all on the same
Yeah,
page and that
yeah.
everybody, we're on the same page when we say microaggressions, I'm just going to read out a couple of quick definitions.
Okay.
So microaggressions are brief, everyday derogatory slights or insults that communicate hostility and bias towards a marginalized group or person. Now, if you think about it in the context of, like, for example, the workplace, it can be things as simple as eye rolling, dismissive gestures when a coworker speaks or shares an idea. But what I really loved was there was actually an elaboration when you think about diversity, microaggressions, and I'm talking diversity because we're women, we're African,
Right.
you know,
Exactly.
so diversity is real in our world. It talked about microaggressions being everyday slights, insults, put downs, invalidations, and offensive behaviors that people experience in daily interactions with generally well-intentioned individuals who may actually be unaware that they have engaged in a demeaning way. How profound is that?
Well-intentioned.
Yeah.
Well-intentioned.
I don't even know to begin with that. Yes, that's layered.
It's really
And they
layered,
may
eh?
not know. So can you just tell them that was aggressive? What you said was just not on. Can you just say that?
You know, you actually can. The thing is that I think you can, you need, in fact, you need to. If you feel a certain way, the person has made you feel some type of way, I think it's important to be able to express it, and you can tell it to them, call them out on it, because in the absence of that,
Right.
the behavior continues. It lives on, it permeates, and what it does is it creates a space that is toxic.
I just feel like it also depends on the circumstances. Like for me, I've experienced microaggressions as a black woman, where I'm in a meeting with many people, and somebody says things like, I make a comment about something, and then they're like, they roll their eyes. I call it out in that group.
How do you do
Yes.
that?
Okay.
What's a good way to do
So the good way to do it, I say, I had a similar situation where we're talking about the issues of climate change, and I'm contextualizing it and saying, look, when we talk about adaptation, it's very much for people that are really, struggling and trying to figure out how do we adapt, and yet, the complexity, and you're talking about mitigation, which for these people here are disadvantaged and it's not a priority, but of course they go in tandem.
Yeah.
Right.
And blah, blah, and then it's like, yeah, there we go again.
Oh,
You
my
know,
God.
so I said, well, thank you so much, but that's not totally, that is very unkind and that is not expected. If you want to say something, say it,
Yes.
Yeah.
so that we can all have your opinion
Yes.
at this table. So it took them totally off
Off guard.
totally off guard,
yeah.
because he did not expect me to call him out.
Yeah.
Because I saw that he had done it to many other women
Right.
and men of color.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
also, there's a pattern.
Yeah.
So this person is, so when you say did it to men of color, so this is a white man. And quite sure these weird facial expressions
Right.
are only for brown and black people. You're noticing that he's only doing it when it's a non
Or Asian.
or
or
Asian.
yes,
That's why I'm
Asian.
saying brown.
Yes.
and
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And also just, little
Interesting.
slight comments like, yeah, but it's so difficult to understand Mr. X because it's just his accent.
That is so out of line. You know what I wonder in this kind of context? Like, do you not have policies, HR policies, where you can go and formally complain, formalize that? Because, 10 strikes and he's probably out, or 3 strikes, he's out. That kind of behavior shouldn't be condoned because it creates an unsafe environment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but for example, I used to work for the United Nations.
Yeah.
And when I worked for the United Nations, Mish, you've been there.
Yeah.
We've both been.
Yeah.
All three of us have been there.
Yeah.
That these documents that are called SDI, standard procedures of sorts, and there was all this conversation about bias.
Yeah.
you know, and what is it called again?
Unconscious bias.
Unconscious bias.
Yeah.
And you begin to see it, but the thing is, there is no mechanism
Yeah.
of, it's not like in the corporate world where
Yeah.
like 1, 2, 3 strikes, this kind of behavior out, you know,
Yeah.
your contract will not be renewed. Frankly, in many instances, people are just moved to another location.
Yeah, so the problem just continues.
Problem keeps going. It spreads around the world.
What's
You know,
your experience,
I'm listening
Mitch?
in, and I'm noting that we've highlighted the expressions. You know, like this is say in a meeting, and somebody's just like, that's just crazy. But I'm thinking of seeing this,
Yeah.
and then the accent, which we might come back to, because I'm thinking then what's the acceptable accent? And I know the answer, which is scary, which is you know some kind of European or
Yes.
American one.
Yeah, and anything
You know?
outside of that is almost too hard to understand.
That is just so scary.
Right.
to
it's
think
that's
about
discriminatory.
that.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking really deeply. You know, I a couple of things. So I to just add to my coaching repertoire, and because I saw these issues come up, I took a diversity, equity, and inclusion (DEI) certificate, and I've been thinking a lot about this, reading the literature, and I do speak about this and actually do training on this for big companies, NGOs, small companies alike. And so microaggressions is like a topic on its own.
Wow.
Yes.
Right? And the things that come up, for example, this woman said to me that she, an African American woman, you know, when she walks into her investment banking job, this one guy was like, "Oh, bit of a strong smell. Oh, you know, so, no, but your perfume is really strong." You know,
Right.
Are you
and she
kidding?
said to me, she's like, "You know what? I don't wear a strong perfume, and even if I do,
So
all
what?
kinds of smells walk in.
Right.
A cheesy smell, an armpity.
Don't even tell me about the
Ew.
fondue smell.
Ew.
So she's like, she was targeted. And
What did
so-
she do?
And so in this instance, first she just sat on it because you see, she was already feeling like, let me play it small.
Right.
Let me just do my work. Let me not rock the boat. So she
Yeah.
didn't say anything for a while, and she later took it to HR, and the HR person themselves, a person of color, said, you know, almost like, just ignore it. Just ignore it. That man, we know that he is quite, you know, abrasive, and he's just absolutely off, but just ignore it.
But do we have
And
to
so
ignore
this is
it?
the thing is, no, we do not have
We
to
don't,
ignore it.
and we should
You
not
know?
ignore it.
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
think that so now let me put on my my hat in terms of sort of what I've learned, you know, what to do, what I'd say in a training
Yeah.
is, you know, you've got to first try and find somebody who you can speak to.
Correct.
Just for your own mental health and stability. That could be bestie, mom at home, sister, somebody you're talking to about this. Don't
Yeah.
let it sit. And then at work, think about who is it? Is it an ombudsperson? Is it an HR person? Is it somebody else, like in this instance of the African American woman? Is there another, say, black woman, right, that you can perhaps speak to? This might bounce back because not everybody's ready to address the issue.
Correct.
But just think about who in the workspace also you can be telling this.
Yes.
Because that is a
You
safe
know that-
space
yeah.
that you're trying to find,
It's
right?
supposed to be. But you see,
Exactly.
you know, what worries me in the example you gave is that the person that ideally should help her address it is already telling her to ignore it. So
Exactly.
how does she find someone else with the seniority and the ability to influence the action that needs to be taken?
Exactly.
You
And in
know.
this instance, and this is what I'm saying, is that
Yeah.
because this might bounce back. She
Yeah.
went to an HR
Or backfire, you
Right.
mean.
That's what I
Yes,
mean. So-
exactly.
So, you know what? In the workspace, you've got to address it, right? But also be prepared for, does that now start working against you? You've got to read the signs.
Right.
Right?
How do you read the room,
Or
right?
are there enough policies and systems to protect you so that
Yeah.
if I go to HR again, in my example of this African American, and I say, but you know, this is really interfering with my ability to concentrate, my mental health. It is disrespectful. And you know, sometimes it's said in front of clients, which means that I can never win a deal. I can never bring business.
Absolutely.
And so I'm going to have to do something about it. You know, a lot of the more well-established companies will have some systems to protect you.
Yes.
Correct.
Right?
I think increasingly, because mental health is a real conversation, increasingly people are also finding or compiling evidence.
Absolutely.
And so in a case like that, you know, if you went to a labor office, even in a country like Kenya, and said you were discriminated against and have evidence, you know that guy will find himself in trouble.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes you know, when you feel you're caught between a rock and a hard place, and you know eventually you might have to leave, I would say gather the evidence.
Absolutely.
Because why should you be the one to take your handbag and trot out into the wilderness of the world?
No.
You know?
And that's like really the thing of last resort. And
Exactly.
not all of us will have options. And,
Yeah.
you know, you've just started a job. I'm not saying just leave. So
Yeah.
absolutely, you want to leave. First of all, even the step before that is if you're ready to like face the person and say, you know what, John, you keep telling me that my perfume is really strong. And in fact, I've noticed you say that even on days when actually
You're not
barely
wearing
put
any. Yeah.
And so can you please stop saying that? This is the impact that statement is having on me. You know, I think it's rather unfair. I can see it's invalid because I'm not wearing any. And you only pick me. So stop doing it. It's affecting my work. Other people are listening, and you know, and see if that gets you somewhere. So there are all
You know-
these
you know-
things. And then leave with that case
Yeah.
to the courts.
But I want to touch a little bit on the fact that a lot of these microaggressions or this learning of being that way really starts in the sandpit.
Meaning? Oh yeah,
Meaning-
as kids.
What
Yeah.
children are seeing in their families. So, you know, I've just moved with my children to Europe, and here we are in Switzerland, and my daughter, who's 11, she's now getting into that impressionable age. She's taller than me.
Yeah.
She's taller than the average 11-year-old. She's a tall girl, right? And of course, thanks to seeing Auntie Mish, she now sees it's normal.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And she's happy about that. But she came home one day, like, you know, she kept wearing this hoodie. And I'm like, why are you always wearing a hoodie? And she's like, no, the boys just told me that your hair is awful. You know, those little aggressions that begin to come. No, just go and put on even in the middle of summer, she had to put on a beanie, a woolen hat. No, so I say to her, I sat my child down and sat to tell her, I said, you're so beautiful, you're stunning. And what I want to tell you is to report that situation. So I also had to do check-ins at school. Has my daughter reported? So that you know that these little microaggressions are showing up at this age.
That's so terrible.
Because I have to prepare her for what she's going to be seeing in a bigger world. You know, and how does she react? How does she respond to it? Because it doesn't stop there. It morphs and becomes a different beast at different times. And it shouldn't even be becoming a beast. It should be something like you're talking about policies and structures and institutions. It's something that we need to talk about openly. You know, the absence of inclusion in certain spaces, the absence of diversity in certain spaces. And how do we navigate all of these?
You know, you're right, because those are self-corrective mechanisms as well, right? So it's in an undiverse space. It's in a we hire only white men in investment banking, right? That this woman pops up as an anomaly, right? And then these things are set. So anything this woman does, I mean, the same comment has been made for braiding. This is something that actually happened to me long ago. Where in a mostly white job, you know, a job with mostly white colleagues, people would be like, oh, your braids are just so, you know, and then pause. Right?
Oh, the hair microaggression.
If I'm sitting there with you and your lovely blonde afro, and you and your lovely, you know, braids, and somebody else has come with her, I don't know, afro wig of the day, right?
In blonde or platinum.
In addition to the, you know, I don't know, the Asian and the Caribbean and the Caucasian and so on, then that's self-corrected, because now there is a diversity of styles that brings the norm right to a wide range. So the thing about microaggressions is they can happen when you are perceived as being a minority, when you're just that different. And thank you for reminding us, therefore, about diversity.
Absolutely. So here's the thing I watched, and I know we don't have much time, but so you each have a parting shot. There's a thing I watched. It was an activist, and I forget her name now. And she was speaking to, I think she's American, and was speaking to a predominantly white American audience. And she said, if there's anybody in the room who would be okay to be treated the way African Americans are treated, can you please stand up? And the room was, and there's hundreds of people. Nobody. Sorry, I don't think you heard me. And she repeated it. If you would be comfortable to be treated the way African Americans are treated. Can you please stand up? And of course, there was a deathly silence. Everybody kind of shrank in their seat. And she said, that's exactly the point. Why would you feel it's okay? Why would you not want to stand up to them when you yourself would not want to be treated that way?
Right.
Absolutely.
And I found that so poignant, so powerful. And so with that, ladies,
Oh my God, that's
as we
great.
talk about microaggressions and as we sort of encourage everyone watching, be conscious of it, don't do it, speak up when you feel you're experiencing it. There's wonderful definitions online to help you kind of understand so you can make a case for it.
Yes.
Do you, either of you, have any sort of parting shots for our audience?
Do you know what I'd say? Everyone knows where they are in the pecking order, right? You might have had 3 years of experience, but you're there above the intern that's just come. You see what I mean? And so if you've got that much power, micro-affirm. So micro-affirmations are the antidote. They're the part solution to the microaggressions. So how do you do that? Right? You nod in acknowledgement so that that person who's like, I don't know. You're there nodding, right? To counter the effect of somebody's negative reaction to what the other person is saying.
And by
That's
extension,
one
supporting
Yes.
the person who's
Yes.
being aggressed.
Yes.
Right.
Or you can
Love
say,
it.
gosh, that was a brilliant point. So there are things that you can do to micro-affirm.
Yes.
And think about that.
Yeah.
And again, you do not have to be the vice president or the
No,
director.
no.
Yeah.
So at any level, think about that. And this is the allies that you find at work that can help you sort of, help you go through this. So micro-affirmations.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wonderful parting
Yeah.
shot.
I
Mos.
want to build up a little bit on
Wonderful.
on what Mish has talked about, the allyship. In that allyship, I think for me, what I want to also tell, especially young women out there and young men, is to say you are worthy.
Yes.
You should never be apologetic of the space you're occupying in that moment. You are worthy. And call it out if you can. Call it out. And the power of allyship is also what helps you
Yes.
to be able to have community that says this thing is not correct.
Yes, I love it. And that was going to be my parting shot as well.
Amen.
Is that there is power in multiple voices. So first of all, you do have to speak out, call it out, and collectively you have even more power. Your voice is louder. Speak up, don't let it fester. With that, guys,
Amen.
it's a wrap because we've got to go.
That was good.
This
That
has
was
been
good.
so great.
Yes.
Ladies, thank you so much.
you.
And to our audience, thank you so much always for watching. Please do remember to subscribe. Take care.
Ciao.